difference between raster and vector images. What the heck is raster and vector? Well, in a nutshell, raster is anything with pixels. Okay, another word for raster images is bitmap images. So this kind of an image right here, this is made up of pixels. And the other type of image is vector. Vector images are not made up of pixels. They're made up of mathematical equations. So let's look at the difference and see what sort of the positives and the negatives are of this. First thing I'm going to do is go and get my marquee tool, and I'm going to draw out a circle. And we'll fill that circle with a color. So we'll just, let's see, we'll make that color that red right there. And we'll make a new layer, and we'll fill that color. Option delete. Fill it with the color right there. Now, let's look at this image when we scale it up. First thing I'm going to do is deselect, Command D, and I'm going to scale it up. Command T, transform in Photoshop, and we'll scale this thing up like really, really, really big. Okay? Now, what I want you to notice here is that the edges of this guy are really soft and ugly. Okay? So that for us, that's a bad thing. We want nice, hard, clean, crisp images. So let me go ahead and delete that because we don't need that layer anymore. And let's try instead to use a shape layer. In this case, we're going to use the ellipse tool. And we've got our fill color up here. Let's make sure we don't have any stroke. Don't want stroke on this. And now I'm going to come over on this side and I'm going to draw out our circle shape again. It's filled with color. Let's look what happens when we transform this one. Command T to transform. Let's make it really, really big. And what you're going to see is that the edges are crisp and clean. Perfect, nice edges. Okay? So at this point, you ought to be thinking to yourself, well, this is a no-brainer. Why don't we just make everything vector? Well, that'd be great, but we can't. Some images just have to be, some things just have to be made up of pixels. Some things just have to be bitmap. And raster and vector images each have their good points and their bad points. Raster images produce photorealistic looks, like photography, for instance. Okay? Or beautiful pictures. You can do those perfectly with raster. With vector, that's much more difficult to get photorealistic work. Okay, let's transfer this knowledge then over to After Effects and see how this works, because there's just a couple of things that are unique here to us. Now, this is a piece of video, and as you surely know, video is made up of pixels. Okay, this is not a vector image. If we were to try to scale this up, we'll go to scale here, and we'll scale this up really big. And we'll see that the edges are just going to be nasty. They're just going to be terrible. Okay? So let's see if we can do some stuff where we can make something pretty using vector images. Now, before we used a shape layer, and we can certainly do that same thing. Any of the shapes that we have, that we create with the Shapes tool or with the Pen tool, are going to be vector objects. So we can draw these out, and we can make them whatever color we want to, and we can scale them up, and we can scale them to 1,000,000%. How about 1,000%? And we'll see that those edges are crisp and clean and look beautiful. Okay. Now, let's use the text tool. That's vector. So let's just add some text in here, and we'll take that and scale it up. Really, really big. Really big. Okay. Let's go grab that guy and get him down here so we can see it. And we're just going to scale until we can't scale anymore. What is that? 6,000% we've scaled that. Still looks gorgeous. The edges look great, right? Doesn't matter if you're creating a billboard-sized image, that text is always going to be nice as long as it's vector. Okay, there's one other example I want to show you real quick, and that is files that come from Adobe Illustrator. namely EPS files or AI files, Adobe Illustrator files. So here I've got an EPS, and I just want to bring that down onto the timeline, and we'll have a look at that. Here's a logo. This logo is really, really small, okay? And if we try to scale this logo up, it actually is going to look terrible. Okay, just yuck. Okay, but we do have this little switch over here that we can turn on for these layers, for these types of layers, EPS and an Illustrator, and there are a few other instances that we can use this. And when we do so, we're going to see that those edges just clean right up and look really pretty. Okay, so that is vector versus raster. Remember, they both have their good points and their bad points. Okay, vector is no good for photorealism, and bitmap is no good for scaling up. That seems pretty easy, right? Okay, I hope you got this in your back pocket now, and we'll see you in class. Ask me any questions that you have.